He's originally from you, or?
I'm not. I'm from California, but Northern California, but it's a small town. Not much entrepreneurship happens there. But my best friend, his family's from here. We kind of grew up like traveling between here and California, and he moved here last year, and I just moved with him. So we lived together for a while, but then I moved out and got my own place. But it's also cool, like you're bootstrapping a company and you need cheap living and you want a place that you can focus, relax, and just focus on business. And honestly, I think if you're a new startup, I don't think it makes that much sense to live in Silicon Valley or in New York. They're very expensive. Yeah. There's a lot of distractions.
I'm surprised you say you need like a cheap place to live. You say here, you know?
Well, so because I moved in with my friends, and so we got a 2-bedroom, and it was kind of like not in the middle of the city. So like I was looking at other places that were cheap as well. Like I was in LA at the time, and I was working on uni part-time, which is what most people should do, is you should work on your company in your free time. Yeah. And the company shut down. And I was like, do I want to go get another job to keep working on this? I got a lot in savings, so look, I'll just look for a cheap place to live, work, use my savings until like the company can pay my life expenses. Yeah.
Where did you get the idea from?
So
I just blew it down here. I love language stuff.
Okay.
I'm using Duolingo, Memrise. I just got my company to buy a lingo pie for me.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn Spanish, Japanese, and I'm picking back up Chinese.
Nice. Language learning for me has been a big part of my life since college. So I studied abroad in China, and I learned Chinese. Now, I'm very fluent in Chinese now, but the way that I got fluent versus all my other co-study abroaders was very different. They basically went to class, because you study abroad, you took Chinese course. Yeah. They went to class, and then afterwards all hung out together. Yeah. I skipped class. I hung out with Chinese people as much as I could, and I actually got addicted to Chinese TV. Because like back then there wasn't Netflix. There was no Netflix, there was no Viki. This was a long time ago. I'm 40, almost. So there was only DVDs. That was the only access you had. Back then, Netflix might have just come out, but it was like DVD delivery. Yeah. But basically, I've been doing blockbuster movies in high school, and even in college, it was blockbuster was the whole thing. Yeah. So I didn't have access to a ton of foreign film, but I had found it when I was in high school. I found that the foreign film section I really got into it. So when I got to China, I discovered, oh, they have this whole like Hollywood, and there's just tons and tons of foreign film there. Obviously Chinese film. So I bought a couple shows, and they would come in these giant cases. There was like Chinese shows. There's like 1,000 episodes, like for like insane. They just do so many episodes. If you look at 3 Body Problems in Chinese, there's I don't know 200 episodes for the Chinese version. Right? It's crazy.
I listened to the audiobook of that before the show came out.
Oh wow, nice. Yeah, so you suddenly have all this content, and so I watched like a couple of shows that I got really into, and one of them I ended up watching like twice, and I ended up like just using that method. But they didn't have English subtitles, so like you had to watch with Chinese or with the really janky Chinese English translations, which were sometimes really funny. Like me and my friends would sometimes get a movie and just to see what the English translations were like, to see if we can guess what was going on. But I watched it with just Chinese, and I used a dictionary to look up all the words as I was watching along. And it turned out that just like doing that, as well as some other immersive things, but this is the main thing that like at night spending a lot of time doing. I went from the lowest level in my study abroad to the by far highest level, and I got to complete fluency. Just like mostly with this method. Took about 3 to 6 months, and I got fluent in Chinese. Yeah.
I was in Beijing 2017 for 6 months, and very much so. If you hang out with all the other foreigners there, you're never gonna learn it.
You never
learn. But if you like immerse yourself around other Chinese people and like go into the town and like talk to people,
right,
you pick it up a lot faster. So there's just that like barrier of like I don't know anything, and then you just wake up one day and you're like, oh wait, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. That actually, I don't remember like exactly when I got to fluent, but just one day, I remember the moment when I realized I was fluent. Yeah. Is I was playing basketball with some friends who are Chinese, but I didn't realize like how much basketball. It's not much talking. Yeah. And then my old tutor from my first day in China walked up because we were playing on campus.
Yeah.
And he said something to me. I responded back to him really quickly, and he's like, "What the heck is going on here? Like, you're really like that was really fluent." Then we just had a conversation, and I was like, "Oh wait, I guess like that was enough time."
Yeah.
So the TV is kind of like is very similar to an immersion experience, because you just listen to native speakers and you see your contacts. It's like a window into another world, right? And that's what I realized at the time, is like using TV as a proxy for immersion. And actually, funny enough, it's better than studying abroad, because in the studying abroad experience, actually most of your time is not getting lots of exposure to the language, because you're kind of thinking about things. The times when you're actually sitting down and solving problems, that's great, but most of the time you're just going about your regular daily life, and at some point you kind of count at like what your routine looks like, and that ends up becoming your maximum fluency. You have to like search out people to talk about unique topics. And then even then, it's in a non-controlled environment. It really sucks to like bring out your phone and be like, "Oh, what did you say?" Which actually I did a lot with my dictionary back then, but it was okay. But TV is a very controlled experience, and you get all the vocabulary that you'll ever need in watching TV, and you get all the listening practice. For language learning, it's all about vocabulary, listening, and full sentence comprehension. So those are the three things you spend all your time on, right? Quickly fast forward to learning Japanese. Later, I tried every single app. I even tried things like 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐬, and 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐬 is not bad. But I ended up going back to Netflix and just watching Netflix. Got to learn Japanese just by watching Netflix and looking at words. I didn't. There's a lot of Japanese content on US Netflix. And there's enough. There's enough. Terrace House is something like, I don't know, 100 something hours. So.
They did one season here in Hawaii, and I got this T-shirt at 88Ts, or one of the girls on the show wears that. So I got this.
Okay. Hey.
I watched all the Terrace House.
Okay, so you've seen it. Yeah. So that's a great way to learn Japanese, actually. And there's a bunch of other reality shows, So then I realized it works, but a big problem with that methodology is it's actually quite painful for the average person to go through. Is that you have to pause on every frame and then like look up all the words, and then pause on every frame and look up all the words. Yeah. This is not the most efficient way of doing it. So I originally also was kind of like part of polyglot communities on Discord, Reddit, watched a lot of YouTubers around like immersion study, what everyone's methodologies were. And the recommended methodology, if you're using Netflix plus Anki, if you prefer to Anki, it is kind of a mess of tools and a mess of recommended like processes. So I started off thinking, okay, I want to replace all these tools for this community. And so the very first version of Umi, when we finally get to it, it was kind of like an IMDb for language learning, where you could figure out which show to watch, where to watch it, and what level each show was at in terms of like how difficult the language was. And that was the first process. Because it was an Excel spreadsheet that was managed by the Discord community. And it wasn't really properly done. It was kind of people's opinions. There wasn't an algorithm for figuring out actual difficulty. And there wasn't like quick links to where to go watch it, what word should I focus on, and stuff like that. That was the first thing I did. It was called Immersive TV. Immersive TV. There's a few other people who've made kind of like similar products for books or whatnot. But I realized that like after I built it, it's like, look, wouldn't it be just better if you could go to a location and just do it, rather than having to jump off to Netflix and jump off to Amazon and jump off to HBO or like wherever everything was hosted. So second iteration. So I started kind of iterating from there to me. So iterated to a YouTube version where we were using YouTube channels, and then moved on to a YouTube Shorts version on mobile, and then finally onto TV shows, TV clips. Yeah, so that's kind of like the evolution of what happened.
What's the work? How long have you been working on it? Part-time?
From ideation, it's been 3 years. Yeah, but I mean, very early ideation of thinking that this space sucks and somebody needs to do something about it. 7 years, I've got old Figma files from like 7 years ago about how I wanted to do something different, but not everything was kind of like this. The idea for Umi in particular is 2022, the beginning of the year. So February 2020, 2025, 2023. Gosh, I was afraid of years. 2023 February is when we officially launched Umi. The idea came around Christmas time. Before that, when we were looking at pivoting, co-founder of mine quit because we had already been through 2 pivots and he didn't want to do another one. and then built a very quick MVP and shipped it, and it was very clearly a winner. So that was, I guess that's been 2 years now.
Yeah. 2 years. Are you doing all the programming yourself, or do you have a CTO? Or
I have a CTO, but I also program. So my main focus is definitely not on coding, but I do spend a good amount of my time coding because there's just so much to build, and we're a small team and bootstrapping. And
yeah, what you gotta do.
Yeah, but I do all the marketing. I do all the business operations. I talk to users, talk to users and build stuff. Yeah, so I do all the talking to users and I help with build stuff. Yeah.
Technical trade.
I think anyone can do it right now. Everything is learnable, and with AI teaching you stuff, it's so easy to learn anything basically. So, and with 𝐸1 in particular, I think programming has become more high level. If you look at history of programming from it's machine language, and then you've got higher level languages, C++, and then up to something like JavaScript, and then Python, and then now you've got, I just think of it as a layer of programming basically. And you can now talk to it like a human, and then it will spit out code. Yeah.
We're talking about GPT.
𝐸1 in particular, I think for 𝐸 and back, you still needed coding skills. 𝐸1, you still probably want to know some things about coding, but you don't need to know as much anymore.
Yeah. I used 3 when I just started to work at. I was writing a bunch of unit tests, so I very much get it.
Unit tests are just automatic now. It's so good. Yeah. So what a team can do, what you can ship, what you can build is just pretty incredible. A team of 2 now. It was probably a team of 10. Even just 3 years ago, it would have been a team of 10.
Where do you see me going in the future? Where do you take this?
So it's all about the mission, I think, and I think it's very important to be well, what problem am I really solving, and then measuring to make sure that we're actually solving that problem. So funny enough, I started off with a different mission, and that mission was shifted over time. I started off with wanting to make language learning more effective. Because TV learning is more effective and school learning is just not. It's you don't end up getting to fluency from school, mostly because you don't spend enough time training the proper skills, which is because you need a lot of vocabulary, a lot of listening practice, a lot of comprehension training. You just need to spend all your time doing that, and school doesn't spend enough time doing that. But over time, I've realized that the mission kind of shifts. I've shifted to wanting to make fluency a possibility for more people, which it sounds like it's the same goal, but it's not actually. So making it more effective, taking it, say, from 2,000 hours to fluency, and by the way, my definition of fluency is very high level fluency. Understand TV, talk to natives about anything. Go get a job. Yeah, that's my definition of fluency. That's where I'm at with Chinese and Japanese, and I'm working on Korean right now. And so to get to that level of fluency, going from 2,000 hours to 1,000 hours is not going to actually, it'll increase the amount of bilingual or trilingual people around the world, but not as much as it can solve the other side problem, which is making language learning an enjoyable experience as opposed to kind of a pain. And Duolingo has this mission also. However, they traded off all of the fluency sides for the engagement. They made language learning kind of an addictive experience. I wouldn't say enjoyable necessarily, an addictive gamified experience, but it doesn't actually teach you very much, and that's okay for them. If we teach you 1 or 2 words a week, they're okay with that. I'm not okay with that, because that'll be a 20-year journey to ever be able to use this language. We still have education in mind. So how can I make something that's as enjoyable and delightful, I wouldn't necessarily say addicting, but you have to be addicting, that also still leads to fluency eventually within a time frame that's reasonable. So that's my mission. And so where it goes from here is, I think we've done a great work with effectiveness and learning how to teach from video. And the course is really good. Learning Korean right now, I can say a ton of stuff in just a week. I can already, maybe half-year course of Duolingo is a week of business. But it's still a lot of work for me to do it, and it's still a little bit more traditional format of lessons and tests, and there's still a lot of time being spent not on the core mechanics of what you're starting, and it's not as enjoyable and delightful as I want to make it. So like I think we're still working on like the core product to see how do we get there. Thanks.
Yeah. I love all the language learning, you know, apps and programs, and you know, I mean, it's really a shame. Like you travel enough, you meet a bunch of Europeans, and all of them know 4 or 5 languages from birth. You know,
Right.
But you go travel around America, most people barely know English. So, you know, but
Yeah.
I just see where it's going.
So all right, your last question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The startup community up here.
There is one, surprisingly. When I moved here, I did not expect it. I did look up and find this thing called Blue Startups before I came here, which is an accelerator. And actually, I was a part of the last cohort. There is a startup community, and it's been hard to get off the ground for them simply because there's not as many entrepreneurs locally. One, population issue, of course, but two, also the reasons why people are here. It's not typically like the hustle culture of somewhere like San Francisco or New York, where most of the startups in the US are. But it's a very close-knit community where you can get a lot of help if you need it. There's an angel group that does investments, and they prefer and prioritize investing in local founders or founders that live here and are building here. And then the Blue Startups is a great accelerator. They give you a lot of connections, and connections also to the mainland, connections to Asia. They run a big conference called 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜 West, which is like the Startup Investors Conference with pitch competition. Yeah, it's really not bad. And there's a lot of like very successful founders that are connected to that community. I mean, the founding partner, managing director of Blue Startups is Hank Rogers, who's the creator of Tetris. Well, not creator of the game Tetris, but the company Tetris. And so he founded that, and you get to meet him, talk to him. I got to have like an hour-long conversation with him about startups and life, which is really cool. So it's not super robust. There's not a lot of us here, but there's enough resources to get off the ground. Yeah. There are a couple actually local VCs as well, and there are VCs who have people here that source people. They source startups. Yeah. So it's not bad. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions and interview.